Hey everyone, welcome to our Pantry Pasta Wine Club dinner. This is probably going to be the strangest wine club dinner we've ever done until we do another one just like it. Chef Matt McMillan and I are coming to you from our kitchens, and we're going to be talking to you about this dinner that we're all having simultaneously in our own homes. And to start out with, I'm hosting our little aperitivo hour. I have a cheese plate here for us. Lots of fun stuff on this. Like I mentioned the other day, we've got a really cool collection of cheeses from Sartori family. So come closer. You can see here, this is sort of a classic aperitivo hour cheese board. We've got some olives and nuts and blue cheese and some honey, some dried fruit, some great meats. And of course I have our Parmesan cheese, which I'm going to be using in our main pasta later on. So I want to talk to you about some different wines that you should be having tonight or could be considering with pasta in general. So this might actually be my dinner right here. This is a lot of cheese. So, as far as wines go, there's lots of wines that you can have with pasta because obviously there's a lot of variations of wines out there. One of the wines that I suggested to go with this was our Super Tuscan. And that's because Parmesan cheese has a lot of nuttiness to it. It's very salty, it has a real kind of a meaty flavor to it, and it stands up on its own. It stands up really well to darker red wines, things that are bolder, things that have a lot of very intense flavor, a lot of spice. So a few wines that I've pulled out here that go with a range of pastas. I have a Chianti Classico, which is sort of the foundation of what Super Tuscans are based on out of this region. Some other wines I have here are another really great Italian wine. Barolo is one of my favorites. This is based on Nebbiolo. It's older. It's really beautiful. It's got some very soft, earthy flavors. In particular, this is a great wine to go with very hard cheeses, like Parmesan. So there's a few other wines here that I would suggest to go with pasta. And in particular, when it comes to something that's creamier and richer like this pasta, the cacio e pepe that Matt demonstrated for you, I really like Chardonnay. Chardonnay has a real buttery flavor to it, and when it comes to food and wine pairing, we often talk about matching flavors that are similar. So if you have like a creamy buttery dish like pasta, it goes pretty well with a creamy buttery wine. Other things that really work well, this is a real classic Italian wine. This is called Falanghina. And Falanghina comes from southern Italy. It's very aromatic. It's got some very nice perfumey flavors to it. And I love this with pastas, in particular with seafood. The old Italian adage about how you cannot combine fish and dairy at the same time. And so you get these really great classic Italian pastas with lots of beautiful olive oil and fresh seafood, and those work really well with unoaked white wines like this. This is another really fun Italian wine. This is a Lambrusco. And Lambrusco is one of our favorite house wines. They tend to be pretty inexpensive. And this one in particular is actually on the dry side. And Lambrusco is not necessarily fizzy sweet stuff. It can be dry and then it becomes very earthy. It's often quite tart as well, so it works really great cutting through richer foods. And then of course, once you start thinking about pastas with heartier flavors to them, you can bring in those bigger, darker red wines. Like Camille, like this wine I really love with meatballs. Things with tomato sauce. As soon as you have tomato sauce, you end up with some sweetness and some really bright, tangy acidity. And this is a great wine to go with that. I had this the other day with a great pork ragu that was awesome. Really great flavors together. So we're talking a lot about Italian flavors here. I think that we're all thinking about Italy right now and wanting to share a little food and wine with them. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Feel free to send them on in. We'd love to talk to you.
Florence says she loves Camille Brave.
Excellent. I love Camille Brave too. And you've probably seen some rumblings about the next wine coming out. It's the Camille Proud.
We have a question from Erin. She says they have a beautiful charcuterie platter right now. Looks amazing. Actually, it's not a question, it's just a comment. I think I might have missed the question. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Well, thanks, Erin. I'm a big fan of a good cheese and charcuterie plate myself.
Christy, she says Camille Brave is her favourite, and so does Deanna.
Excellent. Glad there's lots of fans out there.
Dora is drinking Horsehaven Hills right now.
Very good. Well, you know, the Camille Proud that's coming out shortly is going to be very different from the Camille Brave. It's a different kind of blend.
I got a question from Patrice. She says, how about the Screen Actors Guild? Can you talk about that?
Well, about the wine itself, you know, it's a pretty classic red blend. It's a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon in it. I hope that that's the wine you're drinking right now, because that wine just keeps getting better. It was delicious when it first came out, and you know, we love revisiting it throughout the year.
Melanie says, what is the Camille Proud blend?
So the blend is actually based on the right bank of Bordeaux. So it's a blend of Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and Malbec. So it's a bit darker in flavor. Really gorgeous wine. I think you're going to love it.
Question from Thomas. What does a buttery wine go with a buttery cheese?
Why does a buttery wine go with a buttery cheese?
What, I think.
Oh, what, but, okay,
These questions are coming in pretty quick.
All right. Well, you know, okay, so here's the thing, too, is I'm going to try to answer these as fast as I can, but you know what? I will be answering these afterwards, so I'll type in responses if I don't get to your question in the feed. So buttery wines like Chardonnay, where you get that really creamy, soft richness, they're gorgeous with pastas. You can find other wines that are oak-aged from the south of France. Wines like Viognier are often oak-aged, and those work pretty well, too.
Dana says, does Cooper's Hawk have a Lambrusco?
Cooper's Hawk does not have a Lambrusco. What we have, actually, is our Scarletto, which is a sweeter style red sparkling wine that's modeled after Brachetto, another famous sweet sparkling red wine. No Lambrusco yet.
Jessica said, what would you pair some of the wines with with the cheese plate?
So on the cheese plate, well, there's a few things. I think blue cheese in particular, I really love with sweet wine. You know, I paired it with a little bit of honey here, but I also really love this combination with dessert wine. Like our ice wine is awesome with blue cheese. Those sweet flavors work really well. Harder cheeses like Parmesan, I like with darker red wines. Some of these creamier cheddars work really well with Merlot, Cabernet, a little richer, juicier reds.
Kathy says, she's a barrel reserve. Should I wait or drink it?
Well, that depends on your taste in wine. I hate to delay pleasure, and that Barrel Reserve is drinking great right now. It is really big, bold, powerful, intense flavors, and if you like that, go for it. Especially go for it with a big steak. If you like something that's a little bit softer and sort of rounded out, give it a couple of years. So it'll just keep on changing. Wine is a living thing.
Carol says, I did not get to taste the March wine of the month. How dry is it?
The March wine of the month is our orange muscat, and it is not dry. It's actually very fruity. It's like biting into really fresh apples. It's really juicy. It's delicious. It is. It tastes like springtime. So just lightly sweet, really fruity. You'll like it.
Someone asked, what wine can you not live without?
Oh, don't make me choose. I can't live without any of them. I love them all. That's why I do what I do. That being said, we drink a lot of bubbles in this house. So, yeah, I don't know. I like them all.
Jeremy says, what would you recommend with Camille Brave, serving with Camille Brave?
With Camille Brave, because the Brave is a blend with a lot of Zinfandel in it, it has a lot of jammy, juicy fruit. In particular, I love it with foods with a little sweetness. So think about teriyaki or barbecue. Those really big, rich, juicy flavors work well with that wine. When
will the Riesling Gewürze, is it, be made again?
The Riesling Gewürztraminer?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
So that was likely a Thanksgiving wine of the month. And in November every year we do a wine that blends typically with things like Gewürztraminer and Rieslings, things that are very aromatic and fruity that work really well with the flavors of Thanksgiving. So every November you can count on finding a blend like that.
Adam says, love the videos and the Camille Brave, can't wait for Camille Proud. How would you compare the two?
So I would compare the two in that this is very juicy and jammy. It's a little bit fruitier. The Camille Proud is a little bit darker. It also has some very firm tannins. Because of the Cabernet Franc in the blend, you get this really incredible texture that comes from that grape, as well as these herbal flavors. So a little bit more like black and blue fruit, and these green herbs, and again, this texture that's almost like velvet. whereas this is just really juicy and plump and lush. So different texture, different flavor profile.
Jennifer says she's a Prosecco girl. When is the Cooper's Prosecco? And can you pair it with limoncello?
I mean, our Cooper's Hawk Prosecco is fantastic. I'm a Prosecco girl too. Like I said, I like bubbles. So our Prosecco, we have that all year round. Our limoncello as well. The two together are fantastic. That's actually the foundation of the cocktail that I'm drinking right now. Our limoncello is not available in every single state, but most of our restaurants do have it, and they're great together. They're great on their own.
People keep asking when Proud will be available. There's quite a few of those questions.
It's coming, April. We had intended on doing a big wine club dinner to release this wine at the end of April. Who knows where we'll all be? At the very least, maybe we'll all be together here online, sharing the Camille Proud together. But it's coming soon. It should be available by the end of April.
Jacqueline, she just says she loves limoncello and Prosecco, so
excellent.
There you go.
I have a recommendation for the limoncello. I saw this in an Italian restaurant recently where they took a bottle of the limoncello and they put it into like a big vase and they filled it with water and then they froze the entire thing. So when they came out to serve the limoncello, it was actually frozen into this cylinder and it was delicious. I love limoncello when it's served ice cold. The alcohol content means that it doesn't freeze and it just really amplifies that lemon flavor.
Sarah just said she needs to do more of these, even though we're not stuck at home.
I think it's a great idea. And afterwards, I get to enjoy this and these.
What glass do you recommend for a Super Tuscan?
For Super Tuscan, I recommend a more of a Bordeaux style glass. Actually, I'll show you something. There are a couple of styles of wine glasses out there. This is a traditional Burgundy glass, and you can see it's sort of this round balloon shape, and this is really good for aromatic wines. So wines like Pinot Noir are really good in this this balloon. Super Tuscan is a wine with a lot of structure, firmer, darker flavors, and it goes great in this style of glass. This is a Bordeaux glass, and this is a Burgundy glass. That being said, you can drink your Super Tuscan out of anything you want. If you want to get fancy, there's some great glassware out there.
Someone said they signed up for the Camille Proud event. Is that going to happen again?
I don't know. There's so much up in the air, I think, for all of us right now. At this point, I believe that we've canceled the Camille Proud event. Hopefully we'll be able to pull it off still. Maybe not. Maybe we'll do it online. I really hope that we can all do it in person, but we'll see.
Someone said, what would you pair with the prosciutto on the board?
Oh, with the prosciutto? You know what I love about this stuff is it's really salty. This actually is great with white wine, in particular fruity white wines. If you have this with something like Riesling, it's really delicious. You can certainly have it with red wine, but something with a lot more fruit to it, to me, is the great combination with prosciutto and saltier meats.
Anne says, so I need to open my Camille Brave 2016 soon.
You don't have to. Wine, it changes over time. So, that's a wine that in its youth, it's really juicy and it's got lots of super fresh fruit. And as it ages, it's almost like if you're aging a cherry. Fresh cherries taste one way, dried cherries another. So as it ages, you're going to lose a lot of that fresh fruit flavor. You'll get more dried fruit flavors and more other complex flavors of like nuts and leather and spice.
What would you pair with the blue cheese?
With blue cheese, it's all about sweet wine. This could work with, there are some juicier reds that would work with this, but mostly like nightjar, ice wine, anything that's sweet is really great with that. Those pungent flavors work really nicely with sweet wine.
Leslie says she loves you.
I love you too, Leslie.
Julie's worried. Where is Emily and Matt? Did I miss them?
No, we're right here.
Is there still a bottle of Decadence, and how long will it be good?
Bottle of Decadence.
Yeah, I think I got that real quick.
Oh, I think that predates me. I don't remember Decadence. Again, I think that was before my time.
Will Camille Brave still be available once Proud comes out?
That's a very good question. It won't, or I should say, it's going away. These wines, they're from a single vintage, and we make a very small amount of them, and when this wine is gone, it's gone. So I would imagine it'll probably be gone around the time that the Camille Proud starts to come out. So if you want more of it, get it now.
Someone just asked if they have their wines delivered, or do they have to go to the store to get them?
We do some delivery in Illinois, but for the most part, you'll have to go to the store. The stores, other than Fort Lauderdale, the stores are all open. 11 o'clock, I believe, 11 o'clock to 8:30. So you can go into the tasting room and you can do your pickups. We're there for you. We want to take care of your drinking needs.
Oh, Evelyn says Decadence was a 10-year-old bottle.
Ah, okay. You know, wine is it's interesting with these wines. Like as they age, some wines age better than others. Bigger, darker red wines tend to age much better. Wines that typically are perhaps in their youth just too powerful, too tannic, too acidic. You give them time and those things can sort of soften out, but you have to have the right amount of fruit to kind of stand up to it. It's complicated. And, you know, white wines, not so much. Most white wines don't age quite as well.
What's your favorite sweet wine and why?
Ooh, my favorite sweet wine, you know, it kind of depends on what I'm eating. I think my favorite sweet wine, though, is a Moscato-based wine that comes from an island off of Sicily. It's called Pantry, and they take this muscat grapes and they dry them in the sun, and then they make this wine that tastes like eating golden raisins. And I love it because it was one of the most magical places I ever visited. And often when you go to a place, you fall in love with the wines there, and that inherently becomes part of the reason why you love them so much.
Which wines need to be decanted?
Decanting, you do that for a couple of reasons. One of them is to get the wines off their sediment. So a wine like this is a 1982 Barolo. I actually had it stored on its side. If I wanted to decant it because of sediment, which it certainly has, I wouldn't want to stand it up. And that sediment is just going to kind of form a nice little crust at the bottom of the bottle. So I very carefully pour it into the decanter, leaving that sediment behind. The sediment's not bad for you, it's gritty, it doesn't taste very good. The other reason to decant is if you have something that's just very big and powerful and you want to give it some aeration. So we decant all of our wines at Cooper's Hawk, our red wines, because we like to give them some air because they instantly show better.
Is there a difference between Camille 2016 and 17?
There is a difference. So the 2016 was, I'm going to mess up my numbers here, but I want to say it was around 60-70% Zinfandel, a lot of Syrah, and then a very tiny amount of Petite Syrah and Morvet, whereas the 2016 is mostly Zinfandel. It's about 80% Zinfandel, but the 17 is about 80% Zinfandel, and the rest is Syrah. So slightly different blend, but what we were going for with this wine is sort of a house style that was really consistent from vintage to vintage.
Sarah wants to know what wine you would pair with Mexican food.
Well, it depends. I mean, Mexican food's very broad. You know, you can have Mexican food like ceviche. Then I love that with wine like Sauvignon Blanc, things with lots of acidity, lots of citrusy flavors. Just like you see lots of lime zested onto a lot of those Mexican foods. Those kinds of wines work great. Also, if you're having something like, you know, pulled pork or, you know, heartier carne asada dishes, then go for bigger, juicier reds. If your Mexican food is super spicy, go for beer.
Will says, what are some good Greek wines?
That's a great question. I love Greek wine. In particular, in Santorini, there's some really beautiful white wines that you find there. They're really aromatic. They're just beautiful, fresh and crisp. Really special place. Muscofilero is a little bit more of a perfumey white wine that you find in Greece, and then you find really crazy red wines made from grapes like Casino Mavro and Ahigortigo, and they're very confusing, but they're delicious. Really great ancient varietals.
Carol says, do you ever use Texan grapes for your wine?
We haven't yet. You never know, though. You know, it kind of comes down to what's available and, you know, and what we can find in quantity to meet the needs of our wine club. So everything is possible.
What's the difference between? Sorry, I'm gone. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Went too quick. What's a good wine if you like mostly sweet but want to start drinking reds? That's from Laurie.
So Laurie, if you like sweet wines and want to dip your toe into red, start with something like Lambrusco. You know, these wines are fruity, they're juicy, they are, granted it's sparkling. I would also recommend something along the lines of Camille Brave. And this wine is so juicy and luscious. It's not a sweet wine, but something that has a lot of fruit to it will probably appeal to you as a gateway into drier reds.
Holly just moved. She just moved to Texas and wants to know if there's any Cooper's Hawk opening in Texas.
I hope so. None that I personally am aware of, but I'm not in charge of the real estate side of things. I know that Texas would be a great place for Cooper's Hawk.
Chris, he's not really into wine, but he wants to be. And how would you start? What's the starting point to get into wine?
A starting point, everybody kind of has their own starting point. If you're somebody who drinks a lot of very bitter beers and IPAs, then I recommend jumping into a darker red. You like those bitter flavors already. If you're somebody who drinks a lot of sweeter cocktails, or you're just starting to drink and you've been drinking soda all your life and pop, then go for a sweet wine. So we make a lot of fruit wines. Those tend to be a really good entry point for people.
Judy says, what's the difference between oat and un-oat Chardonnay in taste?
Big difference. So what oak does is it adds a lot of flavors to the wine. It makes them very nutty, very spicy, very rich. The wines get more concentrated. The unoaked wine, it ferments in big stainless steel tanks and it goes right into the bottle. So it's very fresh, very juicy. You have an opportunity then to really see the sort of the wine on its own. I always joke that some men are better looking with beards and some are better looking without them. Chardonnay's the same way. Some Chardonnays are really great without oak, where you can see their fresh flavors, and other ones are rich enough and intense enough to stand up to those spicy flavors of oak.
Nikki says, I really like sweet reds, like Romance Red, but I oddly also enjoy Barbera. Can you give some pairings for both?
Yeah, so the sweet red, this is made from Concord, and which is the same thing that grape juice, grape jelly are made from. And actually, my favorite pairing with that is a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. It tastes like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But it's also really good with spicy food. If you have something like Thai food that's very spicy, those juicy, fruity flavors stand up well. Same with Indian curry. And Barbera, it's a real classic Italian varietal. It goes great with Italian food. To me, Barbera is like the ultimate pizza pasta wine.
Judy, she says, hey Emily, Wheeling loves you. Do you have a favorite cheese or two with a nice Camille?
Yeah, well, I love you too, Wheeling. And with the Camille, I like softer, richer cheeses. So like a cheddar that's got a lot of richness to it, tons of flavor. Something with a good amount of salt to it as well will really amplify the flavors of the Camille.
Somebody just said, what's in your wine fridge? You can obviously see the wine fridge.
Yes, well, I'm going to do another video on that. I'm going to show you what's in my cellar and what kinds of wine accessories that I use here at home. So we'll come back to that.
Dan says, is Barbera going to be available again?
It is. Barbera is something that we have year-round. In fact, Barbera is really unique because it's the one wine that we have a single vineyard source for it. We use Barbera from one single vineyard that's out of the Lodi region of California, and so it's something that we have all the time.
What's good to eat with the Cooper's Hawk Rosé?
Everything, first of all. That being said, rosé, I like it because it's pretty versatile. You can have rosé with things like pork and chicken. It works really well with salmon. It's a great aperitif wine, meaning that it's got enough bright, fresh acidity to really stand up to kind of whet your palate and set you up for the rest of your meal. So.
Brent says, what about 2013 Silver Oak Alexander Valley Cabernet Sauvignon? Good to hold on to.
Yeah, you can hold on to that. I mean, that's a wine that would hold for another decade. The Alexander Valley Silver Oak tends to use a lot more intense American oak, so you get this really coconut, vanilla flavors that come through on the wine. That wine is delicious, super juicy. It should be drinking pretty good right now, but you can certainly hold on to it for much longer.
Guy says, I love the Pinot Noir. What else should I try?
Well, try the Pinot Noir, try the Lux Pinot Noir. Both of them are really great. In fact, I just tasted the most recent bottlings that we did of both of those Pinots, and they're fantastic. We just changed some of the vineyard sources for those wines, and they're really great. I actually really love this vintage of those. Other things, if you like Pinot Noir, you probably like wines that are maybe not quite as bold and intense. I think Barbera is a nice stepping stone, so is Zinfandel. Lots of great wine options out there for you.
Nancy says, I love a piece of dark chocolate for dessert.
Yeah.
Don't we all? What wine should I have with my dessert?
So if you like dark chocolate, there's lots of wines that are options for you. One of them would be a dark wine like Cabernet Sauvignon. Chocolate and wine have some pretty similar flavors. They're very dark. They have bitterness and fruitiness and earthiness. But for a nice contrast, I also like our Nightjar, which is sweet and works really great with chocolate. And also the raspberry wine. That's a really interesting contrast of flavors that I think you'll like.
Kelly says, what are your favorite wines to cook with and why?
Well, depends on what I'm cooking. So when you say what I'm cooking with, that usually means what I'm drinking while I'm cooking, and that's usually something with a lot of acidity that's very mouth-watering and fresh. But in terms of putting the wine into food, I love to do braised red meat like lamb and beef, and I'll do that with Cabernet, Merlot. They have a bold enough flavor to really stand up to being cooked down. I also like to use sherry. To me, sherry's got some really great acidity and these really nutty flavors that add complexity. So, but there's a few wines I like to cook with.
Sue says, do any of your wineries, like the facility in Woodridge, offer tours?
They do not. So no, there's no tours at our winery. Maybe someday, but at this point, no.
Brian says, will we see the twice oaked Chardonnay again?
You know, it's not on the calendar, but you never know. I mean, anything is possible. If you love it, send a note to member guests and services, and we'll certainly consider bringing it back on. And the other thing that we'll consider bringing back on is this event. I mean, this has been super fun. I really love all your questions, and I'm going to keep answering them. So if you've typed them in, I'm going to go back online and respond. And again, I think that this is a really, really cool way to connect with all of you. We can't eat with you in the restaurant, but we can certainly eat with you in your home. So thank you for joining me for a little aperitivo hour. I'm going to turn it over to Chef Matt now for the main event. Cheers.